Even if the original version were to come on while I was in a car, I think I'd be a little bit nervous, you know. I remember I rewatched Easy Rider a little while ago, the classic film, you know, road trip film, and I was sitting in my living room watching it, and that song came out, and I just kind of started cringing a little bit. My Ruined Music is a song off of the Cult's 1987 album Electric. It is a Steppenwolf cover called Born to Be Wild. At that time, I was 16 years old, and I was living in a little town called Franklin, Virginia. It's a little paper mill town. And I was one of the only people that listened to that sort of music in that town at that time. There was no interwebs where you could find all this shit. So when Electric came out, I was listening to it pretty nonstop. And I also was really good friends with this cat, Brett. And Brett was, like me, a bit of a troublemaker. And as a matter of fact, we used to, in the middle of the night, because there was nothing else to do in this town, before either of us had a driver's license, he would push his mom's silver Honda Civic down to the end of his driveway, come pick me up, and we would go driving around this town. We were like 14, driving through this little town in the middle of the night. I don't know how we never got busted, because we'd pass cops and be like, hey, you know. That car was wrecked twice. The second time we wrecked that car was the end of that car, and that happened on Christmas Eve. But that's not the story. That's a story for another time. The first time we wrecked this car, I was 16. Electric had just come out, and I turned Brett onto it, and we were listening to it all the time. And I know it's hard to believe, but I was not always the gorgeous specimen of masculinity that you see before you now, that women just flock to, have to beat them away all the time, right? I'm like a supermodel. Back then, that was high school. No girls wanted to have anything to do with me. However, Brett was a bit better looking, so he would always have dates, and, you know, he would... we were really tight friends. He would invite me, and of course his date would bring a friend, and then she'd be miserable because she's stuck with this nerdy guy with thick glasses and, you know, weird clothes, you know, just like total geek. That was and is me to this day. So on one particular night, Brett's like, I got a date with, I can't even remember what her name was, and we're gonna go out. I didn't have a driver's license at this time. He did. That never stopped us before, but he finally legitimately had a driver's license. Brett's girlfriend's friend was sort of the girl's wing woman. You know, she's the poor friend that stuck with me again. But she was pretty cute, as I recall. Let's just call her Jane. I get picked up by Brett, and we go and pick up the girls at his house, at his girlfriend's house, and Jane is with Brett's girlfriend, and we all get in the car, and we're going to go to, I believe, a party out in the woods in Southampton County, because that's what we used to do then. We'd have keg parties in the woods, and we get in the car, and I'm sitting there. Brett's in the front seat with his date, and I'm sitting directly behind Brett in the back seat, and Jane is sitting beside me. And she is surprisingly nice to me, not looking like real bummed out that she's having to sit next to me. So I'm like, this is going okay. You know, I can't believe it. You know, this girl might actually dig me. So we take the girls and we head off, and we start driving out into the country. And, you know, we put in, Brett puts in the Cult Electric album, the cassette, into the tape player of his mom's silver Honda Civic. Not exactly, you know, a pimp mobile, but it got us to where we're going. So we're cruising through the back roads, and he's driving okay, and I remember it was raining a little bit, and we're way out in the country, and it gets to the track, as we're driving along, this girl's like kind of talking to me or whatever. She's like, "What's this music?" I'm like, "Oh, it's this band, The Cult, you know." And the song "Born to Be Wild" comes on. It's a cover of Steppenwolf's song. Dun, 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 get your motor running, dun, 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 head out on the highway. And she looks at me, she's like, "I love this song." You know, she didn't know that it was a cover, I guess. You know, she just heard it's a classic. And I'm like, "Oh, that's nice." And I went like this, and she, you know, she's like, "This is so great," and put her hand on mine. I'm like, "Holy cow, we're holding hands now." Me and Jane in the back seat. We're driving through the country roads. We've got the motor running. You know, we're heading out on the highway, which is really just a tiny ass narrow country road. And we're going around, and Brett, I guess, because he's driving, got kind of pumped up because, you know, you're revving your engine. It's a revving your engine kind of song. He started going a little too fast, which I was kind of used to because he drove kind of like a lunatic anyway. But I noticed that Jane sitting behind me, her hands start tightening up a little bit. You know, I'm like, "It's okay," you know. And we're heading out on the highway, and we're building to the chorus, you know. We're driving along, and all of a sudden it's like, "Born to be wild," and the car starts sliding. And I remember I looked over, and there was a cornfield beside us, you know. We're way out in the country. The car starts sliding. "Born to be wild." We're drifting, and then the car just tilts on its side, and we go into a ditch, and we keep sliding, and it was like the ditch was like a track for like a roller coaster or something, because the car is just went around in the ditch, just hauling ass. So I'm look like this. I've got my arm against Jane's shoulder, and I look and I see there's grass in the ditch, and it's just like whipping past the window of the car, just like whoosh, 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 like in a movie, you know. And we're sliding to the ditch until we hit the end of the ditch, and it's like bam! And right when we hit the end of the ditch, we hear this "born." It's just like boom, silence. And then you hear this "born to be wild," and the tape died. And I look up front, and Brett is sitting there. The car is like this, literally in the ditch. Ah! It's literally like this in the ditch. And fucking, I'm like this. Poor Jane is sitting here with a bloody nose. And up front, Brett's date's like, her head has hit the windshield and spoof, spiderwebbed the windshield. So everybody is kind of like, everybody's like, "Are you okay? You know, is everybody okay?" And we're like, just kind of dazed. So we had to get out of the car by opening the driver's side door on the driver and in mine, and climb out of this car and climb out of this ditch, right? So we get out, and everybody's just like, "What the fuck?" Kind of dazed, you know? And we're out in the middle of nowhere. This is before cell phones, too. So we're standing there looking at his mom's car in the ditch. It's just covered in mud. You know, nobody's broken anything, but this poor girl, her head spiderwebbed the windshield, and my date has a bloody nose, and all the getting our motors running, good feeling vibes, like something cool might happen with my date tonight, that's gone, you know? We're standing in the rain in the middle of the nowhere, and like covered in mud, basically in a ditch. So about this, so we're standing there like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And about this time, we see this big jacked up pickup truck coming around the corner. And it's one of our guys we know from high school, because where we went to school, lots of people had jacked up pickup trucks. And we're like, we wave him down, and we're like, "Dude, you know," he's like, "Oh, wow, you went into the ditch." He's like, "Yeah, we slid out." And he's like, "I got a winch back at home. I'll run back on my truck and put it on the front of the truck, and we'll just winch your car out, and hopefully you can still drive," you know? Because we're like, we don't want the police to come. This guy takes off in the truck, takes the girls with him. We're like, "Look, just get these girls out of here," you know what I mean? We're not going to make them stand on the side of the road. Take them home. So he takes the girls with him, and me and Brett are left standing with the car in the ditch. And even though it's the middle of nowhere, for some reason, a cop car just comes cruising around the corner while we're standing there beside the thing. And it's like, oh, here they come. And here's the cops. And they're like, "Oh, you've gone into the ditch." what happened? And it was like at the curve of a road, and Brett was like, I saw a deer, which happens out in the country, so I swerved to avoid the deer, and, we went into the ditch. And so the cop immediately gets his flashlight out and it's like, where'd you start swerving? He's like, up there. He goes up and starts like looking at the tire marks. We're 16. We don't know anything about the forensics of like wrecking a car, swerving, whatever. He's like, I don't see any skid marks right here. I see where you're drifting right here. It looks as if you were probably going too fast and just went into the ditch. Have you guys had anything to drink tonight? And we're like, fuck. No, eventually, the pickup truck with the winch comes back, sees the cops, turns around and leave. Because, you aren't supposed to just winch a wreck out. You're supposed to have an accident report or something. Our parents get called, we wind up going back to Brett's house. My dad is forced to get up in the middle of the night, I believe, and we get chewed out, And I never talked to that girl again. Never talked to Jane again. I'd see her in the hallways of high school. She's like, that's the dude I got in a wreck with. So, but to this day, I will not listen to that song, the Cult cover of Born to Be Wild. No way. And, if it were if I heard it, actually I did hear it one time in Los Angeles on the radio. I was in a car somewhere going, for some press and stuff, and came on the radio station. I'm like, turn that right now, turn it, or I'm getting out of this car, because I'm superstitious. I'm on the road way too much to be playing something that I wreck to. But that's the story. It is a good cover of the Steppenwolf song, but never listen to it again.